since about 1961. And it looks a little different to how I remembered it, particularly the name.
Wow, hasn't this changed? My goodness me. And how small it is. How small. It's hard to believe that 2,000 people were crammed in here.
200?
2,000.
2,000 people?
I lied about the 2,000. It sounds impressive. It's incredible how small it is. It always felt small, but not this small. I wonder if anything's actually changed as regards that. I can't see that the wall looks like it's an original one, doesn't it? When we went along, the cliff was actually standing sort of kind of like this, as one does in a tailor, with a tailor drawing chalk marks, you know, the kind of thing they do, and pull the sleeve off and all this sort of thing. And he looked at us and kind of went, hi. You know, the lip went up and we said, hi, you know. And there we were 17, well, we were 16 actually. Cliff, as you know, is quite a bit older than us. He was 17, and we all had pimples and greasy hair, and nothing's changed really, I suppose.
He was very much, and we all felt us, but certainly Cliff felt himself a rock and roll star. He was a sexy rock and roll star. The Daily Mirror and all these things, you know, we give this music 6 months and all that. And pouting Cliff and back to the lip again. And Cliff appeared in a film called Serious Charge, which was his first film appearance. We used to have a joke on stage. I used to sidle up to him, whatever we were playing. Do you want to dance? Or I said, do you fancy having a riot? And we would have a riot because Cliff, he would just wiggle his leg a bit more. It's difficult now, here in 1993, to imagine Cliff Richard was a serious sex symbol. And of course, someone had to do it.
And people insinuated at the time that maybe Cliff was not exactly pleased that we now had our own success, particularly as his record, which Bruce had co-written, a song called Please Don't Tease, was knocked off #1 by Apache. But in actual fact, he was delighted with that success, because people didn't really understand how close the relationship was between us at the time. And just as we were delighted that he was continuing to have his enormous success, he was equally delighted, and perhaps more so, I think, because he was the one that had got us into that position where we had a recording contract. And after having persuaded Norrie to listen to us, wasn't he proved right?
Well, the sound, as most people know, is the Hank Marvin sound. This is the first. This is for serious fans worldwide and train spotters who know more about the Shadows and Cliff than we do. This is the first Fender Stratocaster in the UK. Cliff Richard imported it in about March of 1959 for Hank to play.
But we were talking, Cliff and myself, about guitar sounds, and we loved the American sounds. We felt we were getting towards that, but not quite there. And he said, what sort of guitar do you think you should be playing to get those sort of sounds? And we thought, well, the guitar that James Burton uses, now for the uninitiated, James Burton was playing on the Ricky Nelson records in around 1959. And we knew it was a Fender because we'd seen the photograph at the top of the headstock. So we thought a Fender would be the guitar, but the question was, what sort of Fender? Well, in those days, we couldn't buy new American instruments here in the UK. I believe there's some sort of import ban. The only way of doing this was that Cliff would, or his management would write to the United States, they'd bring in this guitar. We got the brochure first of all, we checked the brochure, and we went for the most expensive guitar in the brochure, which seemed the right thing to do. This was surely the one used by James Burton. It was a Stratocaster with bird's eye maple neck, gold-plated hardware, and a tremolo one. That's that little arm attached to the bridge which alters the pitch of the strings when you vibrate it. We got the guitar and we opened this case a couple of months later, and this magnificent thing from outer space lay in the case. It was absolutely stunning. We just didn't play it at first, we just touched it, you know, felt it and looked at it.
And it's appeared on so many of Cliff Richard and the Shadows hits. It's a genuine work of art. I managed to steal it years later. But Hank really created the sound. It was the sound of the Fender Stratocaster. It was Hank's idea, and not many people remember this. We used to play what they call Vox AC-15 which was a one-speaker amplifier. And Hank said to Vox at some stage, "Can't you make me an amplifier with 2 speakers in it?" So they put 2 AC15s together, and which became the famous AC30. And that's how it was created. That's what it was created with. This guitar, the amp, the echo box, but much more important, I have to say this, is the way Hank played it. He bought it.
Well,
He's always had money, that man.
When I sit here now looking at this cellar, this very tiny cellar, there seems to be some of that atmosphere of 1958 still somehow in the walls of the building. I can almost hear voices and hear the music we were playing and see the people crammed in. And when I think of how fortunate I was to be in this Two Eyes coffee bar that day in 1958 when John Foster came in looking for a guitarist, and that led to that meeting with Cliff. I mean, I really shudder to think what my life would have been without that chance meeting. And in all honesty, it didn't do a lot for my career, but as you well know, it made a world of difference to Cliff's.
But it was Licorice, bless him, I think, that started the discussions after, I know, started Hank, talking to Cliff. And I think they seriously got into it from 1962.
His attitude towards recording through perhaps the early part of the 70s started to be not as positive as it should have been. And he was content with maybe second best. And records were not selling as big as they should have been if he'd been getting the right songs and the right recording. And I think one of my colleagues on the Shaz, Bruce, really played an important part at that time in giving his career a big kick, recording-wise.
He was making some fairly bland, if that's the right word, bland records. Cliff will disagree with you. Cliff is convinced it's about the occult, and there's a message against the occult. It isn't. But who am I to argue? There's a famous line in there. Cliff still thinks it's about cats. If you're out on a moonlit night, be careful of those neighbourhood strays. He's talking pussy, not cat. So I think Cliff, because of his situation, has to find something that fits, and it's the occult, but it's not.
I think as he's got older, he's got more self-centered. And I think that's due to the fact that he's not married, he hasn't got a family, and it's quite common. I've known other people in similar situations who, when they haven't got this, naturally they become self-centered. They don't have a wife to consider, they don't have children to consider, they think only of themselves, and that's quite natural. And I think the older you get in that situation, the more self-centered you become. And of course that's good from Cliff's point of view with his career, because he can give his full time to himself.
I've got a lot of time for his professionalism as a pro myself. You know, he's incredibly professional. He's got a great voice, great singing voice, great recording voice. It always sounds, it's that knack of whoever's listening to the record. It's as though he's singing purely to them. I went into Abbey Road one day, and my engineer, done all the Cliff stuff with me, said, "I'll see you in Paris on Tuesday." This was like Friday. And I said, "What's happening in Paris on Tuesday?" He said, "Cliff's new album." So I said, "Really? What new album?" And that's how I found out that I wasn't doing the next albums.